Doom vivemos vivamos Epicureans. This is the BCE Comics Pod, and this one-shot edition. Man, I goofed up the intro on that. Whatever, we're going with it. Anyway, I'm Nick Smith. I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shop. How's it going, man?
Tongue-tied, apparently. But we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club, and this one-shot is going to be our brief thoughts on today's issue, which is Uncanny X Men number 161, Gold Rush. Dave Cockrum finally returns on pencils. Okay, so as Professor X remains unconscious, we get a flashback to his early years when he was traveling in Israel. Xavier used his mental powers to save a woman named Gabrielle from a catatonic state, and while there, he met Magnus, a fellow mutant whom we all know as Magneto. The two became friends, and they fought against Hydra together to save Gabby, only to have a philosophical difference emerge between them. Magnus believes that one day mutants/Homo superior must rule over mankind, whereas Charles believed that they should find some way for mutants to live and work together with mankind. The book then ends with Charles coming out of his coma, and the X-Men celebrating on Lalandra's spacecraft, only for them to be ambushed by the Brood at the end. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts?
So I really like this issue, and part of it's because it's been kind of set up in my head about this time with Xavier and Magneto specifically, and around Gabby, because this is the era that kicks off the Age of Apocalypse, because, spoilers, Gabby is Legion's mom.
I didn't know
and
any of this.
This is the time. Yep.
All right, go for
So you're not I'm not spoiling anything that won't be for another 200 issues or so. But I remember seeing scenes like this of Xavier and Magneto together during this specific time, and ultimately when Xavier and her apparently have some fun together. So this, there's some issues of Adjectiveless X-Men and Uncanny that lead into, it's the Legion Quest storyline that lead into Age of Apocalypse, and they go back in time to this specific era. Now, it might be plus or minus a couple months or weeks. I don't know if it's these specific days, but the idea that there's some relationship here, this is the seeds that they kind of play off of later. And I would imagine that they revisit before this when they introduce Legion as a character, which I think is more at the end of Chris Claremont's run during that like Mutant Genesis time period. I think that's when he gets introduced, because he's on like that Muir Island team or at that point in time right before Adjectiveless X-Men starts.
Yeah, I don't remember it well enough. I know I've read some of those things when I was a kid, but I don't think I've gone back to them.
I don't think we have them in Epic Collections yet. I think they're that missing volume that. Yeah, I think that's the time period that we're talking about, where Legion is maybe not introduced, but he's around, during that time period. So, I thought some of the art was really strong. I like the sort of the way that Cockrum lays out some of the panels, some of these triangle views and things like that. I like how they don't shy away from the Nazis bad. These are Jewish characters. In fact, the scientist or the psychiatrist is drawn, very much as a Jewish character. The one thing I did bump into with the art, though, was that I wasn't sure if it's Magneto standing behind Xavier when at the end of that flashback where on page 176.
176,
so,
okay. We'll see if I can get that
is
on
that
the comic
Magneto
viewer.
there, or is that someone else? Because then there's like a traitor that goes back and tells the Nazis about her. But how do they get that information? Is that like an orderly that rats them out? But if it is, the orderly looks like Magneto. I'm kind of thrown off there.
I think
maybe I'm just missing something.
Yeah, I'll pull this up on the comic viewer. Which I think everyone so the right-hand page, the way I have this set up here, I think all the people that you actually see is Gabby, of course, is the woman, Magnus, Magneto, the white hair, the gray-haired guy is the psychologist, and of course Xavier's the bald man. And every time you see all of those, it's fine, but then the final two panels, you can see the guy is hiding behind a closet. I think that's our Hydra informant. So we don't ever actually see him or what he looks like.
So
That's the
yeah,
way I
so
read
okay, I
that.
get that now. I wasn't picking that up when I was reading this late at night. I thought, it was like maybe the white outfit with the long sleeves. I'm like, maybe the orderly's evil or something like that. But now, so nobody heard this guy breathing in the closet, or Xavier didn't pick up his brain patterns or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
That
and
I bumped into that.
now that you say that, and I'm looking at this closer, if you see the third to the last panel there, the dude's standing right behind the psychologist. You can see the outline of his head in yellow in behind
Yeah,
the what do you call those? The Venetian blinds, whatever that is, because we
right.
then see he's it flips to the other side in the second to last panel. So yeah, he's right there. You're right. How come Xavier doesn't pick up his mind at all?
And they can't like, and if it's a closed window, I'm going to nitpick this even more. If it's a closed window, how can he hear the conversation? And if it's not a closed window, how come they can't hear him? If I'm sitting there having a drink and there's just somebody like lurking behind the Venetian blinds. Anyway, uh, I look, I like, you get a story where Magneto's beating up Nazis, stealing some Nazi gold. I'm down. This is fun. I like this. The other thing I bumped into this issue is the last two pages, both from an art perspective and just from an abruptness perspective, felt odd, right? And I get that there's supposed to be this shock of like they're all comfortable, they're at a dinner table, and then like they get ambushed. So from that perspective, I don't mind the shock. I guess it's like the fact that we were like in the Middle East in the past, and then all of a sudden we're on a starship, and everybody's in like these different weird costumes, and then all of a sudden there's like this thing happening. Like it's too many quick beats too close together, in my opinion. I wish there was some more build up. Like maybe you didn't need them, like you just had them like hanging out, near Xavier, like at the room, and then have Deathbird ambush them like by his bedside or something like that. Like, you didn't really need that for them to, squeeze in this like dinner or whatever they're doing, and everybody's dressed up differently in between, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
I
What are your thoughts?
I cannot prove it, but there's a part of me that feels like this is another filler issue that they had in a drawer. They were running behind, although it feels like we had about 3 issues of filler issues. But it just kind of feels like this was already made, and then they tacked on that little bit at the end to kind of fit it in the continuity of where they currently were. Because the whole thing of Charles's past, that could have been done at any point. There was no reason why it had to be done at this time. Again, I don't know
Well,
that.
and if you just flip back and forth, like page 187 and page 189 look like they were drawn by two different people. Like, you feel like Cockrum just kind of rushed page 189 just to kind of get it done, whereas 187 looks great.
And maybe that fits with my theory that maybe he already had the story just sitting in a drawer somewhere, and they just had to crank something out to get something out on time. Because we know previously he was put off the book because he wasn't keeping up with his deadlines, right? But Cockrum had
Yep.
other responsibilities, and I don't know if I need to look into it. I don't know if at this point if he does have other responsibilities or if this is all he has. Of course, we're getting to the point where Cockrum's going to be off the book anyway, and I don't know if that's the same time when he resigns or not. I know there was some tension between him and Jim Shooter, so there might be some of that leading into this as
Yeah, he's
well.
off by 165. I think 165 is Paul Smith's first issue, or unless it's 164.
Yeah, at some point
No,
in
it's
this,
165.
yeah. As for my thoughts on this issue, I didn't think the story was anything groundbreaking, but what it does for the character of Magneto and for Charles is incredibly important and very interesting, right? It sets up both the history between the two characters, which I'm not sure we've really gotten before. Maybe a little hints that there's some history there, but it really does set up the dynamic between these two, which then gets built upon in the other medium relating to the X-Men, right? That Magneto has this philosophy of, based on his previous instances of being put in a concentration camp, Homo superior cannot live with Homo sapien, right? So therefore they must rule the earth. And this sets up Charles's desire to know we need to work with Homo sapien, that we need to live together. And so that sets up that whole dynamic between the two. I also kind of like how Magneto just runs away with a ton of Nazi gold at the end. It kind of explains how he has all these fancy machines and various bases for his plots, right? You know, we've talked before. How does he have an Antarctic base and an asteroid base? How does he do all this? Oh, well, he has a ton of Nazi gold. That's how he maybe does some of this. And
volcano layers don't pay for themselves, man.
Right, exactly. Bringing Hydra in too, I think, is great. It ties this not only into the wider Marvel universe, but Hydra being kind of the descendants of the Nazis makes perfect sense that both Xavier and a villain like Magneto, given his background of having been in a concentration camp, totally makes sense that he would be fighting against them and going against them. So I enjoyed it. Again, the story itself, fine, but what it does, what it sets up, I think is great.
Yeah, it makes me think of this panel. So this is Cable reacting to Xavier telling a story from this era, from the Legion quest. And it's like, you and Magneto in a bar fight back to back? What the hell? You know, it's so yeah, and you're right. The other mediums have played with that. I mean, there's an Avengers Doomsday trailer that I think was just released yesterday. It's hard to tell what was released when because there's this like creative leaks of these things coming out. But that trailer has the X-Men in it and has an old Xavier and an old Magneto sitting down playing chess still. Like this is, they have not let go that these two are friends as well as enemies.
Yep. No, and that's a wonderful dynamic, right? That's a great thing to play with. Okay, I think that's it. Stojr, any other final thoughts?
No, the Brood Saga is going to kick into high gear now. For the rest of Cockram's run, and we only have I think 4 more issues of it, so it'll be interesting to see how they land this plane and what comes next.
Yep. All right. Well, again, if you guys enjoy our thoughts, follow us on YouTube. Find our audio podcasts wherever fine podcasts are found. Not that ours is fine, but it's okay. It's getting there. It's the little podcast that could. We're chugging along. We've got our schedule up on YouTube. We're going to do a live stream of Daredevil Volume 8 this Sunday, January the 11th, 2026. So please join us for that. And, we'll see you again next time.
Later.